to another episode of Easy Shoot Tutorials. My name is Sean Hill, and today we're going to be doing a technique called frequency separation or skin retouching. Today's image is of model Brittnay Farr, shot by me, and we're going to start by opening it in Camera Raw and just dragging up the exposure a little bit. We're going to drag the clarity slider over to the right to even everything out, because when you're shooting in RAW, you just want to make sure everything is nice and sharp because they have a tendency to be a little bit blurred. We're going to drag out the blacks and the shadows to make everything a little bit lighter and even it out. Then we're going to click on sharpening and just drag that up just a little bit because, like I said, RAW images have a tendency to be a bit blurred. Now everything looks good to me, but just in case, we're going to click on this little thing at the bottom that looks like a Y and just check the before and after, see what the difference is, because sometimes you can actually make the image worse if you're not paying attention. So what I'm doing here is I noticed that above her head there was a little bit too much dead space. So I'm going to grab the crop tool and I'm just going to drag that down a little bit. It just makes the image look nicer and it's not as distracting, I think anyways. So we're going to duplicate the layer and we're going to name this layer low. We're going to do it one more time. You can also do this, by the way, by pressing Ctrl J or Command J on a Mac, and we're going to name this layer high. Press OK. Now drag the high layer above the low layer and click low. We're going to go to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur. Now for me, I like to set this Gaussian blur to about 10, but it really depends on the image and how far away the subject is from the camera and really what you're shooting. But for me, 10 pixels works, so that's what I'm going to leave it at, and press OK. Now on to the high layer. So what we're going to do for this high layer is we're going to head over to Image, Apply Image. On the Layer tab, we're going to click Low, and on the Blending tab, we're going to click Subtract. Make sure that your scale and offset, your scale is set to 2 and your offset set to 128, and press OK. And one last thing, we're just going to click Linear Light over here. Alright, now that that's all good, we are going to select our High tab again, and we are going to focus on the blemishes on her skin. Now there's not too many, so there's not a lot of work that has to be done here, but you just want to make sure that you have, once again, the High tab selected, and then you're going to click your patch tool and just circle around the areas that need to be cleaned up, and you're just going to drag them over to a clean area of skin. Just select them like that, drag to a clean area of skin. Extremely simple, but it might take a long time depending on how many blemishes your model has, how many scars. It really is dependent on the model, but in this case Brittnay has very beautiful skin, very clean skin, so there really isn't too much work that needs to be done here. Alright, now that that's done, we are going to start on our Low tab. Now this is where we're going to do all of our blurring of the skin to just smooth everything out and make everything a little less harsh. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab the lasso tool, and on all these areas of skin that are exposed like this, her forehead, her cheeks, her chin, we're just going to go around them with the lasso tool. Make sure to close it. We're going to go over to Filter and then just press Gaussian Blur. And that should automatically do the 10. Alright, we're going to start with our cheeks now. Go around her cheeks. And remember, this is going to be extremely hard with a mouse, making sure that everything is even and straight. So it really doesn't matter that much, but you want to try to do your best on it. For purposes of this tutorial, I'm just going as quickly as possible, but when you're doing it, you may want to take a little bit more time. Starting on that cheek now, Filter, Gaussian Blur. Very repetitive, very simple, but it can be time consuming depending on the model. Once again, there we go, we're starting on her chin now, going around her chin, very simple. Then Filter, Gaussian Blur. Now if you notice, I'm also selecting the area around her neck, and I'm going to be doing it on her hands too. Any areas of skin that you see, you're going to want to do this on, because if you just do it on her face or if you just do it on her neck, the whole image is going to look weird. You want to make sure that you get every area of exposed skin and just make sure everything is blurred equally. Now when we come down to the bottom here on this bottom hand, you'll notice that her fingers are sticking out, and that is one of the hardest things to select with the lasso tool when you're just using a mouse. So I would suggest just really taking your time once again with this part. If you notice, like, my selections right here are horrible. They're extremely messy. Once again, I was just going quickly for purposes of this tutorial, but you're really going to want to take some time on your hands just to make sure that everything is perfect, everything is evened out. You really don't want to give a photo to a client that's like completely screwed up, so just make sure that you're selecting these fingers very nicely, very carefully. There we go. Now everything's nice and selected and blurred. We're just going to zoom out just to make sure I didn't miss anything, and I didn't. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go and we're just going to play around with the opacity slider on low and see how much of that blur we actually want to apply to the image. I think 85 is good for me, so that's what I'm going to leave it at. And then I'm going to go up and flatten the overall image so that it collapses all of those layers together. Now, everything has been applied to the background layer, and her skin is nice and smooth, and there's no visible blemishes on her skin. Now what you'll notice in these last few minutes is I'm just sort of playing with the sliders in the camera raw tab, trying to figure out what really makes this image stand out, even everything out, really make this image the best image that it can possibly be. And what I actually noticed is that black and white as opposed to color actually looked a lot better for this particular picture. It made the bricks stand out in the background, and it really, in my opinion, made her pop. And it just made the image shadowy and dark and brooding, and I liked it a lot more. Thank you guys for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video. I really hope it was helpful to you. Please leave comments down below on what you want to see next. Like and subscribe. It would really help me out a lot. Also, if you would like to see some behind the scenes work, more of my photo shoots, some of my uncensored work, my Patreon link is in the bio. Click on that and just subscribe to my Patreon. I also have an Instagram link in the bio as well. Thank you so much for viewing this video. Until next time.